Well, the world has been captivated by the missing Titanic exploration sub. It looks like we have a grim update, an update that was probably the most likely scenario since the very beginning. The world has watched and literally been counting down the seconds of a very rough estimate based on the amount of oxygen that may or may not have been available to the explorers on this submarine. And now I call them explorers because I still give them credit. The spirit of exploration is still important, and it doesn't really matter how much money these people had. I suspect most explorers early on were better off or had some sort of resources or things of that nature. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but I think it's a rough story. So this morning at like 7:30 our time, my time, was when the alleged air supply was supposed to run out. Now, what a lot of people kept hanging on to, I thought, was weirdly, ignoring the reality that experts said that they would need something like 8 hours to ascend from a depth that low. Meaning, when people were talking about having 2, 3, 4, 5 hours left, all that really meant was that they were going to run out of air 4 hours from the surface or 3 hours from the surface, or in some cases 20 or 30 minutes from the surface. There was no way to get out of that submarine without assistance. There was no sub sending down some airlock to get them in. None of that was going to happen, especially since really up until just moments ago, they didn't even know where the thing was. When we were counting down 8 hours of oxygen, it didn't matter because we didn't even know where it was, let alone sending something down to get it. Last night, the first deepwater recovery robot, Victor 6000, had made it to the ocean's floor and began searching for the Titanic sub. While it's feared the oxygen supply on board had been depleted, the U.S. Coast Guard still considers this an active search and rescue, not a recovery mission. Victor 6000 has arms that can cut cables, dislodge a trapped or stranded vessel, as well as fix a cable onto the sub to allow it to be winched to the surface. More search and rescue assets will be arriving on the scene today. And this was at 6:45 a.m. this morning. Interestingly enough, there's a lot of backseat drivers, including myself, on this, and I found a video from somebody who is actually a 20-year submariner, Subbrief, which I think is, if you really want to know, this person obviously seems very, very smart. He created a list of, things like, things that concerned him: the use of carbon fiber pressure hull, hiring young, inexperienced technicians. The CEO famously said that they don't hire 50-year-old white guys because it wasn't inspirational. Now, based on the latest update we have, it doesn't seem like it was a white guy or inexperienced thing. It seems like it was a corner cutting thing, a thing that, they talked about it. It's him, the CEO, saying, "I've broken some rules to make this." How OceanGate's boss reveled in revealed the 7-inch acrylic window on the lost Titan sub would get squeezed in under water pressure, and admitted he ignored guidance to create the deep sea vessel. This seems, more like a tragedy of hubris, corner cutting, and ego, more than an inexperience. The billionaire, the millionaire that started all of this said, "It's acrylic plexiglass," Rush tells Estrada after being asked what the window mounted at the front of the Titan vessel was made of. "It's 7 inches thick and weighs about 80 pounds. And when we go to the Titanic, it will squeeze in about 3/4 of an inch and just deforms," he explains. "And acrylic is great because before it cracks or fails, it starts to crackle. So you get a huge warning if it's going to fail." The video then shows Rush giving a tour of the submarine's interior. Typically, when we're in the dive, you'll have 2 people sitting here by the window, 2 people behind them, and the pilot back there at the rear of the vessel. So it's quite a bit of room. First thing we do, 1 button so it doesn't detonate, he says, pressing a small button mounted on the wall. As he does, monitors inside the craft flash on. He talks about all sorts of things of that nature. But it doesn't look, the U.S. Coast Guard, this was just an hour ago. We're not giving up. The U.S. Coast Guard says hunt for the Titanic 5 is still a rescue mission as they are looking for survivors despite oxygen supply running out. Now, one of the things that he talked about in this video, the submarine engineer or submariner, was that did they know, when they said, oh, they have all this, they have all this emergency oxygen. Well, how did they test that? People breathe faster under duress. Did they actually test it? Where do these numbers even come from? There's no voice comms. There was comms lost during testing, but they had let precious time tick away before calling anybody. There's also no way to ventilate the pressure hull. And you see this test depth of 4,000 meters was not tested at sea before first commercial dive. Possible that the atmosphere life support was not even tested. Does not use lessons learned from NASA and aviation community. No subject matter expert in the submarine operations and safety. These are if you could pick any one of these things when you're going 13,000 feet below the ocean and figure out, and put it to the test. But now the U.S. Coast Guard has discovered a debris field. And this is probably the sub, I'm guessing. I'm guessing that it had a major hull collapse, probably on descent. Like they've been, and this is going to sound kind of morbid, but that scenario is far better than them sitting at the bottom of the ocean, slowly running out of air. The fact that they have a press conference set up, that means they must be reasonably sure that's what it is. You can see the Coast Guard has scheduled a press conference for 3 p.m. Eastern in Boston, Massachusetts, following the announcement that an underwater debris field had been found in the search of OceanGate's missing Titan submarine, which vanished Sunday with 5 people on board. The Coast Guard is scheduled to hold a press briefing to discuss findings from the Horizon Arctic's remotely operated vehicle near the Titanic. It said in a press release about 5 hours ago. The Coast Guard said the Horizon Arctic's ROV reached the seafloor and began the search for the missing sub. The Titan submarine vanished Sunday morning with 5 people on board. OceanGate CEO Stockton Rush, French mariner Paul Harvey, British businessman and explorer Hamish Harding, Pakistani businessman, and his son. The Titan lost contact with its surface vessel, the Polar Prince, around 1 hour and 45 minutes into the dive on Sunday, about 900 miles east of Cape Cod. Now I believe that is when the catastrophic hull failure happened. The Coast Guard has announced Thursday that the debris field was discovered within the search area. Experts within the Unified Command are evaluating information added. Underwater remotely operated vehicles were deployed Thursday morning to search the floor. Coast Guard said earlier that Canadian vessel Horizon Arctic had deployed an ROV that reached the seafloor. And this is, basically, when you have debris, that means it didn't get stuck down there. And, people end up not breathing. This thing imploded. You see, if you look some of these videos, if you're watching my screen, this is what this is like a train tank implosion. This is what the, rapid depressuring looks like. You'll see, if you watch slowly, that's likely what happened to the tank. I know it's wild, but that's what it looks like. An instant collapse. The whole thing about hours of oxygen left, I don't think that it mattered. Now they say this person is tweeting that it is pieces of debris belonging to the lost submarine, indicating an implosion. So, this is a very, just a mess. You have, weirdos celebrating because these people happen to have money. You had, a CEO that looks like they cut all sorts of corners to make this happen. And then you had some, explorer spirits on there who, I'm hoping got to see the Titanic before the implosion, but who knows? This is just a complete failure. People talk about, obviously, all the all the the risks, the corners that were cut. Who can really know? A lot of people talk about, oh my God, they used a $30 Logitech controller. I mean, doesn't our military run, drones with Xbox controllers, or something like that? Maybe that's fake. I don't know. I feel like I read that somewhere. It's not uncommon to have off-the-shelf technology used in very important issues. Sometimes it's just not worth re-engineering something. But if you watch Subbrief's video on it, you'll see that there was, numerous issues, corners cut, numerous issues with the sub, that all of which, having outdated LCD screens, that doesn't really matter. People really focusing on all sorts of things. I think in the end, what mattered was the hull. They had some sort of structural failure. Perhaps it was the glass, the plexiglass. No one will really know. I know it sounds morbid, but I think it's probably better this way than have them sit on the bottom of the ocean and run out of oxygen. I guess I don't know if they recover it, if they even bother recovering it. I don't know how that works, if they could figure it out. But this looks like the end of the search. And to their families, obviously, my heart goes out to them. This sucks. I guess. I don't, if there's another major update on this, maybe, I don't know. There just doesn't seem to be any more question. I think a lot of people knew. A lot of people were hoping for the best. This is human nature. But it looks like this is the end of their search. Make sure you subscribe so you can get updated. If we get more information, I'll update it. I'll upload it almost immediately. We'll talk to you again real soon.